All right, guys, we're going to rock and roll here. Like and share the show, like and share the show, like and share the show. J-Dubs, I'm going to ask you which headline you find most intriguing, but get us up and running if you could, please, sir. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We find YouTube is the most consistent of all the platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, which would make sense, you know? I mean, it is a video streaming platform, where the other platforms we stream to are social media platforms that have video components. Today's show is good. I think it's been a pretty good week of content, don't you think, J-Dubs?
No doubt.
We got an interview in the mix. University guides are basically saying, look, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this independent of the University of Virginia. Mm-hmm. And the University of Virginia kind of finds itself in a rock and a hard place, because are you really going to squash the free speech of students with the theory that you can't trespass on our university when they're enrolled at the university? So as long as they're historical guides, the guides are back in action. They can't give admissions tours.
Right.
But they can give historical tours. Get I Love CVille up and running, Facebook? You waiting on that, J-Dubs?
Yeah.
All right, let us know when you're live on there. Are we live on LinkedIn?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. We're live on LinkedIn. Excellent. I see us live on LinkedIn. Thank you. We are live on Twitter. Twitter, retweet the show, Twitter. Charlottesville Twitter, give us a retweet if you could. Like and share the show. That would mean the absolute world to us. I'm going to ask you this question. Crozet, Virginia. What is the best use for Jax's Bar and Grill in Crozet? It recently closed down. What is the best use for Jax's Bar and Grill? Warrior AG, we appreciate you in your commentary on Jax's Bar and Grill. Sincerely, Albert Graves, we appreciate you and what you had to offer on Jax's. I'm going to relay some of this live on air. My wife said she wants more food content. I hope my better half is watching and listening to the program. And she said, I want you to talk about food more often on your show. So we have on the rundown for my better half, what are the best appetizers in the Charlottesville? What are your favorite appetizers in the Charlottesville area? Can we once we get the headlines up and running, can we just go fave appetizers in CVille area? So you can strike the and make favorite fave, F-A-V-E, and that way that headline doesn't seem so small. A lot of people don't know this. When you work for a newspaper, what are the key components of being a copy editor? I was a copy editor for years at the Daily Progress. Is headline writing. Think about it. Headlines are what grabs your attention for the stories you're reading. It's the headlines and photos that grab your attention. You can win Virginia Press Awards for headline writing. It is a talent, writing headlines. John Shiflett, the sports editor at the Daily Progress, I hope John Shiflett hears this. John Shiflett, the sports editor at the Daily Progress, is a fantastic headline writer. I sincerely mean that, John Shiflett. All right, we can rock and roll when you're ready. Are we live on the Facebook of I Love CVille, J-Dubs?
Yeah.
Oh, look at Judah Woodcower on a Friday. Today's payday. Oh. Is today payday?
I think you're right.
Or is it next Friday that's payday?
I think you're right.
A payday Friday. All right, my friend. We can rock and roll when you're ready. Tell them which headline you find most intriguing first.
I mean, there's so many good ones, but I got to go with this, the University Guide Service. It's been some interesting news following them over the months since this started, and I'm glad they're sticking it out there and starting up again.
Are they sticking it to UVA?
I don't think so. Not necessarily.
I don't think UVA wants them to do this. They're doing this independent of the University of Virginia, and frankly, independent of a written agreement that UVA has with the University Guide Service. Did you read the Cavalier Daily article?
Yeah.
Some key elements there that need to be highlighted. We'll talk about that on today's program. Cavalier Crossing is rebranding on 5th Street. The gentrification is about to happen. Bill McChesney, welcome to the program. Lauren and Ivy, welcome to the program. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, the Country Green Road, Old Lynchburg Road, the area that is the Woodlands, which is owned by friend of the program, Tripp Stewart and his partner, Aaron Laufer. They have control of the luxury condo complex, The Woodlands, down 5th Street Extended off of Old Lynchburg Road. The condo complex, the villas at Southern Ridge, where we have a rental property within. The apartment complex, Cavalier Crossing, which was purchased by a Northern Virginia firm and now is being rebranded as Attain on 5th, is on the cusp of significant gentrification. A lot we're going to cover in the program. Judah Wickower, we're ready to rock and roll. As I give some love to the viewers and listeners that are watching this fine and fair talk show, hammer that like button. Hammer the like button. Judah Wickower, let's rock and roll. Chris Fairchild, hello. Vanessa Parkhill, hello. Bellamy Brown, hello. Lauren and Ivy, hello. Brandon Harrop, hello. Ian Casco, hello. Jesse Rutherford, hello.
Quiet on the set.
Quiet on the set. Quiet on the set. The set must be quiet right now. Oh, quiet on the set. Good Friday afternoon, guys. I'm Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille show, the Friday edition of the I Love CVille show, the last one of the week. Today's week has been good. The content has been quality. If you are in the habit of listening to podcasts on your time, I very much encourage you to catch the content we created Tuesday through today. It's I'm going to toot the horn a little bit. It's been compelling commentary, compelling content. We interviewed a national real estate development firm, Subtex, Mitch Corti, the executive vice president of development, on Wednesday. We highlighted what we think is an intriguing proposition for housing in our community as Subtex builds the Verve in the shadows of Scott Stadium at the same time that another national real estate developer, Greystar, builds housing off Old Ivy Road. At the same time, the University of Virginia is requiring second years to soon live on grounds. There's got to be some kind of friction for those three storylines from a student housing and from a landlord and tenant standpoint. We'll see how that plays out. We broke some news on Fashion Square Mall saying, look, tenants that are remaining, you have 2 weeks to vacate. That was last week on the program. We have some breaking news that we're working on now that will materialize next week on the I Love CVille show. The program at 12:30 p.m. is appointment television. Is this television? Appointment content, appointment streaming for you, the viewer and listener. If you want to stay on the cusp of what's moving and shaking in the categories of real estate, of politics, of small business, entrepreneurship, and this kind of intersection or crossroads of food and beverage and business brokerage and sports. I mean, basically the water cooler of conversation. This is the show to watch. I mean, I'm literally watching media outlets locally, watching Judah and I do this program. Kevin Yancey, Bill McChesney, thank you for watching the program. Hammer that like button. We work hard for you. We don't ask you for money. Judah, you asking them for money?
I would never.
We don't ask them for money. All we ask is you like and share the show. That's it. Literally, that's all we do. And it can take you 2 seconds to do it. Bill McChesney, the mayor of McIntyre, thank you for doing it. John Blair, thank you for doing it. Local publications that are watching the show, thank you for doing it. Local elected officials, thank you for doing it. I want to give some props to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. John Vermillion, Andrew Vermillion, love John Vermillion. Love John Vermillion. Some of the best sideburns in the game. John Vermillion has fantastic sideburns. I'm a man who loves quality sideburns. Judah Wickower, John Vermillion's sideburns are fantastic. No. And Andrew Vermillion can wear a quarter zip rowback like few can, including yours truly. The Vermillions making positive impacts for our community. And their e-commerce website moving and shaking, right, John? CharlottesvilleSanitarySupply.com. We love those guys. Studio camera so they can see the studio. Labor of love for our firm here. Every month or so, we add to the studio in some capacity. 2 shots so we can see with the distinguished Judah Wickower, who's not only sideburn clad, but has a fantastic beard. one of the best beard games in the mix. Any opposition to growing the beard out, Judah Wickower, in longer capacity, like is popular in today's pop culture environment? Grow it out. Get a little bushier. Maybe like a thick. Jesse Rutherford's got a good beard going. Curtis Shaver's got a good beard growing. Grow the beard even longer. What do you say?
I've gone big beard before.
Like what? To down to the nipples?
I don't know that I ever measured.
Beard to the
At
nipples.
least not with nipples as a
Benchmark?
benchmark. Yeah.
Well, let's go beard to the nipples.
I'm not sure if I'm ready for that right now.
Can we do that as part of
the cold weather?
Can we make that as part of the requirement of being on the I Love CVille show, or is that me stepping out of line as an employer?
You're saying we're both going to grow long?
No. I'm a clean shaven kind of guy.
I think that would be.
My wife says when I grow
Teen
when
beard.
my wife says when I grow the beard that I look terrorist-esque. She says don't do it. So you got babyface Jerry over here.
I think your wife is racist.
No, I think that's far from a racist comment. I'm
joking.
One of those jokes no one gets over there.
You basically said when you grow a beard, she thinks you look like a terrorist. How is that not racist?
How is that racist?
She thinks you look like a Middle Eastern person with.
Well, you're inferring over there. That's your implications. Those are your connotations right there.
Right.
That's Judah Wickower doing some talking over there. That's not what I said. That's what you said right there.
I'm the racist.
Maybe that's in your mindset over there. All right, a lot we're going to cover on the program, including, Judah, UVA guides going rogue.
Yeah.
The Cavalier Daily's got commentary on this. And interestingly, CVille right now had a few paragraphs on this, but they missed the meat and potatoes of this story. The meat and potatoes of the story is the quote from university spokesperson Bethany Glover. Quote, any individual may give a tour of the university. However, the guide service provides tours on the university's behalf through a special status agreement. They are free to resume historical tours as individuals, separate from the guide service agreement and name. Basically, that quote says these students are going to give historical tours despite us having an agreement in place with UVA Guide Service that says they right now cannot do it. So the students are going to do it on their own accord outside of the agreement.
I don't know if I took it that way. I took it to say that
It's the only way to take it.
no, it's
They are free to resume historical tours as individuals separate from the guide service agreement and name that we have right now.
yeah.
So these students are doing this without really having approval from UVA, and they're just basically saying, we're not going to call ourselves university guides.
Yeah.
They're just rebranding themselves, and the rebranding of themselves as guides means that they don't have to fall under an existing agreement. This is guides going rogue.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, this is exactly how you take it. Guides going rogue. I'm curious of how the Jefferson Council is going to respond. How's Bert Ellis and the Board of Visitors going to respond? How's the university going to respond? And the guides that are going rogue are straight up saying, you read it in the Cavalier Daily article, we're going to still give the historical tours that got us in hot water, the historical content that we were doing all along that got our guide service suspended. I want to unpack that. So you have students and an organization that have an agreement on paper, a contract with UVA. And the students in the organization that have an agreement on contract with UVA say UVA is not moving to the quickness or the efficiency or in the decision or in the ways that we want. So we're going to just rebrand ourselves. Instead of University Guide Service, it's just going to be little Johnny and little Sally doing the guides, the tours. We're going to keep them historical in nature, and we're going to do them right now. Unbelievable. And they're going to do it on dirt owned by the university. So the university would have this predicament. Do we hold the students accountable for trespassing, even though the students are paying to be here and exercising their right of free speech? Effing crazy. And then they'll use social media to promote to parents and prospective students that we're here to give the tours. This is a dynamic story. that is tailor-made for the I Love CVille show. Also on today's rundown, we're going to talk about an Albemarle County school board candidate that legitimately ran for an elected position. Goes to Judas Church. His name?
Jim Dillenbeck?
That pretty much was proverbially slapped on the face by the Albemarle County School Board.
Not surprising.
Jim Dillenbeck?
Dillenbeck, yes.
Dillenbeck, who, is it safe to say he identifies as conservative?
It's safe to say, but as we both know, school board races are not typically politicized.
Okay. He finishes in close second place in the 2024 Rio District race.
Yeah.
He loses to a gentleman, his name, who he lost to?
Chuck Pace.
Chuck Pace, unfortunately,
Sadly passed away in December.
sadly passed away unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
The school board says we'll open it up for candidates, and they choose not to select the guy who finished in close second based on the popular vote in the Rio District. And instead, they handpick a liberal-minded applicant that never went through the election process and that fits the narrative or the ideology of those elected officials on the Albemarle County School Board. This is the definition of backroom dealing.
And I'm not going to say that there's a one-to-one correlation, but didn't we see some people angry about a certain appointment of a
I was hoping you would go there.
political nature recently?
I was hoping you would go there. Dr. McBryce, Governor Glenn Youngkin, Virginia Board of Education. And take it a step further. You got this. You're going to crush it. God, you're on point today.
I mean,
Succinctly,
pot, meat, kettle.
how
Is that-
so?
Is that succinct?
How
enough?
so? Succinctly?
Well, if one side is not down with Youngkin's appointment, because I think their argument was this person did not win the popular vote, or did not get enough. I don't know. Whatever the argument is, it seemingly they are doing the exact same thing. In reverse.
We'll unpack it, guys, today on the I Love CVille show. Also on today's program, we're going to talk about the best use for Jax's Bar and Grill in Crozet. Jax's Bar and Grill, Warrior AG, we're going to highlight your comments over here. Jax's Bar and Grill, next to the ABC store across from the Harris Teeter in Crozet, Virginia. You would think a spot that would have tremendous success. We've seen some turnover and attrition at Jax's Bar and Grill. The last place that had some success there, what? The Mexican restaurant that took over the Ivy Roadhouse spot at the 240, 250 intersection? Outside of that, attrition and turnover has been tangible. What is the best use for Jax's Bar and Grill in Crozet? And how about a tip of the cap to my wife who said, let's put some more food in the mix of the I Love CVille show. So how about we chitter-chatter the best appetizers in Charlottesville, Virginia. I just had one this weekend. The cheese curds at South Street. If you have not had the cheese curds at South Street, ladies and gentlemen, you are missing one of the best appetizers in the Charlottesville area. Taylor Smack, the owner of South Street Brewery, I believe got his commercial start as a brewmaster, as a brewer at South Street before he went and founded the Blue Mountain Brewery brand that has had tremendous success. What is the best appetizer, or some of them, in the Charlottesville area? Judah, you're going to have to offer some suggestions. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts by putting them in the feed, and I will relay them live on air. And speaking of beer, folks, if you haven't realized this, the young millennial, the Gen Zer of today, the young millennial and Gen Zer of today. Do we have the generational chart you can put on screen easily? Can you get that on screen? The young millennial, the 40 and under consumer, is much more health conscious than when I was 40 and under. And they are drinking a lot less, especially beer. And they are drinking more seltzers, spiked seltzers, a lot of beverages that are infused with THC. They're enjoying more THC gummies. The New York Times recently highlighted that we recently had more breweries closed than open. It is a space that it's pivot, evolve, or die. And what's happening is the breweries that are having the most success are those that are innovating or evolving into the restaurant brew pub model, where the food is a priority, where the ambiance is a priority. My wife and I and our two boys went on Saturday to South Street, and we got there early before the Buffalo Bills played the Baltimore Ravens. And on Saturday at South Street, it was standing room only because it was a Buffalo Bills backers bar. And we got there about 2 hours before the Bills and Ravens kicked off, and it was the Eagles were playing, right? And as the Eagles were playing in the playoffs, Buffalo Bills fans were coming in by the dozens. And at the time we left, it was standing room only. So think about what South Street Brewery has done. Fantastic cuisine, no table service, order at the bar, and then have the food delivered to you, but no waiters, pay at the bar, pick up your drinks at the bar. And then they've cornered the Buffalo Bills market, and there's hundreds of Buffalo Bills fans, to our surprise, in this community. I want to talk about that a little bit on today's program. And speaking of food and beverage, I have our firm, Charlottesville Business Brokers, one of our businesses, online at charlottesvillebusinessbrokers.com, has a client, an established client, that is looking to scale their operation through the acquisition of a food and beverage business locally. They would prefer it be quick serve or fast casual. Quick serve or fast casual, ladies and gentlemen. They would like something that has a lease of about 3 years with an option to purchase after that term has come up for renewal. If this fits the mold, let me know. I've had a number of inquiries already. They have cash on hand, don't need financing, and would like to make a purchase in the first quarter of this year before it expires. All right, Judah Wickhard, the lead of the show, as you put the lower third on screen, Elliot Harding, watching the program, says there is a shortage of sports bar locally. Elliot Harding, you and I need to have that, and I will follow through on this, Esquire Harding, that beer at Selvage. And for my better half that's watching, Elliot is a mover and shaker in the business world, and I got to meet him for a cold beverage or two at Selvage, and I will not be late for family dinner, sweetheart. He's also a family man, Mr. Elliot Harding, as well. So he's got to be on time for family dinner with 2 kids of his own. Elliot, I promise. Vivace, the calamari at Vivace is being put on the feed as one of the top appetizers in this community. Do we go guide service? This is a damn good story. Can I give the who, what, when, where, why, or would you prefer to give the who, what, when, where, why?
Go ahead.
The UVA guide service. This is the guides, the student guides that give the admissions tours and the historical tours of UVA. They were suspended, ladies and gentlemen. They were suspended for doing both the historical and admissions tours just before the beginning of the fall 2024 semester. They were suspended because the Board of Visitors in the University of Virginia did not like the content they were presenting, how they were portraying Thomas Jefferson, and essentially offering color and commentary of the very dynamic history of the University of Virginia. How slaves were utilized to build the University of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson's checkered past, Sally Hemings, fornicating with Sally Hemings, rape or sex. This type of commentary and this type of guide perspective offered to 16 and 17-year-old prospective students and their parents. Some parents so turned off by this commentary, they said, we don't want our kid going to this school. Calling it in some capacity, this seems woke. Seems woke. okay? And you've seen a movement with our country. You've seen a movement with Americans where Americans in our country are starting to resist the woke platform. You've seen diversity, equity, inclusion efforts start to get dwindled in our country, even by UVA in some regards. Okay, so the University of Virginia in the fall, before the start of this past semester, said, hey, you students, go sit in timeout. Go sit on that stool in the corner. You can't play with your friends. And you can't go to the recess and swing on the swings or go down the slides. Look at that corner and sit on timeout. And the students were like, what? We've been doing this for generations. And UVA said, not on our property, you're not. You're going to start towing the company line, and we're going to put you through a training regimen. And we're going to give you the corporate narrative of what to say, what UVA wants you to tell prospective students and their parents. And until you can commit to that, you sit in the corner and you sit in timeout on that stool. And then the guide service initially said, all right, we want to work with you. We'll go through this training pattern, but we're itching to get back to giving tours. And then UVA surprised the guide service by saying the suspension is going to go longer than initially anticipated. And that pissed off the student guides and said, you were being disingenuous with us, UVA. You said we could do this training and then get back to giving tours. And then finally the students put the decision in the palm of their own hands, and they took action. And they said, you know what? We're just going to do it whether you like it or not. And we have this agreement in place with you, university. The University Guide Service does with you, University of Virginia administrators and Board of Visitors. But that agreement is in the name of the University Guide Service. And we're not going to do it under the umbrella of University Guide Service. We're going to do this under the umbrella of just me, Johnny the second year, and just her, Susie the third year, and just him, Billy Bob the fourth year, and just her, Jacqueline the first year. They're going to do it. And we're going to start it right now, whether you like it or not. And they put the University of Virginia in a rock and a hard place. And the rock and the hard place is this. Are you ready? Are you ready for it? The rock and the hard place is calling UVA's bluff. Is UVA going to say to the students that pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to their school, we aren't going to let you on the dirt and in the buildings and around the buildings that we own give these tours? It's trespassing. We're going to hold you accountable to trespassing. But we're going to let you live in our housing. We're going to let you pay us to live in that housing. Pay us to go into these buildings to learn. Pay us for the books and the classroom and the curriculum and to be a student. But we're going to keep you from trespassing on the tours. They couldn't do that. So now UVA takes some egg in the face, and a spokesman, Bethany Glover, says, quote, any individual may give a tour of the university. However, the guide service provides tours on the university's behalf through a special status agreement. They are free to resume historical tours as individuals, separate from the guide service agreement and name, end quote. UVA and the guides and the students, it was a game of poker, and the students won. The students won. They're going to give the history tours for prospective students that talks about Thomas Jefferson's checkered history, the use of slaves to build the University of Virginia, Sally Hemings, sex and rape, and all other kind of room for interpretation history behind UVA. Judah Wickower, the jack of all wits. I'm curious of your compelling commentary.
I mean, it sounds like the university to me was a little more just apathetic than they were directly confrontational about this. Obviously, they suspended them, but
Go ahead.
reading further.
You and I see life so differently. Go ahead.
I know. But so reading further, there's a comment saying what we noticed on the history side of the tours when they were suspended at the same time without the same justification that the admissions tour suspension had. And they also note that there's been little effort to reestablish the historical tours.
How is that apathy then?
Called it a waiting game of us asking and asking for answers.
So this is the definition. It's the opposite of apathy. They suspended them for one thing. If they suspended the students from doing historical tours, a suspension is the opposite of apathy.
That's not what I'm talking about, though.
You said the university has been apathetic with how they've handled the guides. Yeah. Those were your exact words.
After the initial suspension, I don't know why you're pushing back so much against this.
Well, it's a talk show.
I was going to read this. They're basically saying it's ultimately a waiting game of us asking and asking for answers and not really getting anything in return, particularly in return terms of the return date of historical tours that pushed us to start giving the tours again. They're basically saying the university is just not doing anything.
Right, which is the opposite of apathy.
That is the definition of apathy.
Why do you think the university is choosing not to do anything?
Because they don't want to deal with this.
Bingo.
That's apathy.
That's
not apathy.
Viewers and listeners, agree or disagree with me or Judah? Is the University of Virginia being apathetic to the students by suspending them?
That's not what I said.
And B, ignoring and ghosting them. They're ignoring and ghosting them because they don't want them to do the historical tours.
But as was noted above, they can't stop them.
If a guy and a gal are together and the gal breaks up with the guy and the guy says, I want to get back together with you, and he texts the gal and he emails the gal, he phones the gal, he FaceTimes the gal, he Instagrams the gal, he TikToks the gal, he snaps the gal, he shows up at the gal's work, and the gal does nothing, ignores him, ghosts him. That is a sign that the gal wants nothing to do with the guy. The students are the guy. The students are TikToking the university, snapping the university, IGing, DMing, texting, emailing, calling, knocking on Jim Ryan's door. We want to return the tours. And all the university is doing what the gal did at the breakup or post-breakup. Washing her hair with Pantene, conditioning her hair with Pantene, naring her legs, going to the tanning bed, but certainly ignoring the guy. That is a strategy. Apathy is the furthest thing from what's happening. And then the spokesman from the University of Virginia said, well, we have a signed contract, and they're pretty much just ignoring it because they're doing it as individuals and not under the umbrella or the guise of the University Guide Service, which our contract is buttoned up with.
Okay.
My friend, read the tea leaves. Read the tea leaves.
There are no tea leaves. I'm not sure why you're using that analogy.
What? How? There's all.
I'm not arguing with you. If you want to go with that, that's fine.
Let me push back on that here. And this is pushing back as for the. Wow, that Albemarle County police officer was flying down Market Street right there. This is for the sake of a talk show, and this is just general counsel in life, not just for you, but the viewers and listeners. Okay, there's always tea leaves. There's always tea leaves in everything we do to read. Some people are good at interpreting what is going on through context clues, human behavior, body language, tone, history, past performance, and utilizing those cues, those indicators, to hedge risk or to create the best outcome for every scenario.
Okay.
Man, that fire truck is hauling tail down Market Street. Others say there are no tea leaves. This was a brouhaha here. The guides wanted to come back. UVA didn't want them, so they ignored them. And now the guides are saying, we're going to tear up the proverbial contract.
But you keep calling it a contract, and the university spokesperson, Bethany Glover, doesn't use that language. She calls it the special status agreement and goes on to say they are free to resume historic tours as individuals.
Bethany Glover uses the language in quotes in literally the third paragraph, separate from the guide service agreement.
Yeah.
An agreement is a contract.
And then she says right after that, they're free to resume historic tours as individuals.
Right. So you see what they're doing. They're saying we have a contract with UVA, basically a joint venture with UVA to do UVA guide service and to do tours on grounds with UVA. They're holding us accountable to this agreement with UVA guide service. They're not responding quickly enough for us. So we're going to say, forget the guide service you have a contract with, and we're just going to do this as individuals, as students. And then they're calling the bluff of the university because the next play, the university...
She works for the university, though, doesn't she?
She's the spokesman for the university.
Yeah.
The students are legitimately saying to UVA, yes, we have an agreement with you for UVA guide service. But now we're going to do this as individuals.
Yeah, because we're not held by... It's not like...
Bingo.
You can't do this without a contract.
Bingo. And then UVA's next play on the chessboard we call life would be to say to the students, you can't give these tours, historical in nature, and we're going to hold you accountable through trespassing.
Sure, they could
and
do that.
The problem with that is how would the students be able to get to class? How would they be able to live in student housing? How would they be able to pay the university for going to school? This is
fair questions if that's what they go ahead
effing crazy. On top of that, the public relations blowout and nightmare for a school that's already got a public relations crisis on its hands. The crisis is stemming from militarizing the state police to pepper spray students in May for a pro-Palestine protest. The crisis stems from UVA Health, fraudulent billing, and changing medical charts to maintain performance standards, cronyism, bullying. The crisis pertains from the murder of 3 football players at the hands of another football player that had a gun on him months ago, which was reported to UVA. And an audit or report that still hasn't been released to the public. The crisis on the hands is the bloated nature of diversity, equity, and inclusion payroll and efforts. The crisis on their hands is 13 appointees by Glenn Youngkin who want to change the course of the University of Virginia and return it to lower out-of-state tuition, single-sanction honor code, and less DEI focus. They can't risk another PR nightmare. So the students, the guides, at this point, have the university in check. Is it checkmate? No. But it's in check. And is it going to be queen to R5? Only time will tell. It's a crazy story.
It's what?
It's a crazy story.
No doubt.
The students, at this point, have gone toe-to-toe with the university and may have won. Kevin Higgins says, I'll say it again, where is Jim Ryan? Remember Jim Ryan in the months that just passed said he would not be commenting on much from a politics standpoint anymore? Why? Because he saw his contemporaries in the Ivy League get lambasted with how they handled some of the Hamas-Israel fallout on their campuses, including one former employee. A former employee, remember? Who am I referencing right there, J-Dubs?
A former employee of UVA?
Liz McGill.
I don't remember that.
Who got pink slipped by Penn with how she handled Israel
Right.
in Hamas on her campus. She was the predecessor to the provost, Ian Baucom, who just quit his job to be the president at Middlebury College in Vermont. Who goes to Vermont to run a school? Talk about frigid in Charlottesville. But I guess you got the president's title.
Maybe he's a fan of skiing.
Vanessa Parkhill watching the program. She says, I think McGrady's used to be a Steelers bar. Not sure it's still the one in the area. Bills Mafia is no joke. They're a passionate fan base. We saw them at South Street. And she wants to salute the guide service students for a fantastic strategy. However, how will those individuals market their tours? Will they have the opportunity to brand themselves as UVA sanctioned tours? She says, shouldn't UVA start offering their own admissions tours, thus undercutting the opportunity for these individual students? And she says, maybe the Jefferson Council should recruit students as tour guides who offer a different experience and present Jefferson and UVA differently. All great questions, which is why I put the lower third in the rundown. If you could rotate that into the mix, how will the Jefferson Council and the Board of Visitors respond? All great questions. Will the Jefferson Council, will the Board of Visitors offer a competing historical guide service? And to the students and how they're going to market it, their individual tours, 2025 is a time and place where a couple of guys sitting in a downtown storefront can create a platform that reach hundreds of thousands of unique IP addresses over the course of a calendar year by connecting some cameras, 3 computers, 3 Apple TVs, and some proprietary software to become the news of the community. Anyone can market and promote themselves in just about any capacity in 2025. It's a wonderful thing. It's the democratization of the megaphone. It's the democratization of the spoken word, of the tin can, the yarn in tin cans, the democratization of the telephone, it's the democratization of mass communication. 2025 embodies that, the democratization of mass communication. John Blair on LinkedIn. This fall, Virginia Tech enrolled the largest freshman class in its history. But more than that, this class had the lowest acceptance rate in Virginia Tech history. If you go on the Virginia Tech admitted student tour, it's 100% rah, 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 and talks of how great the university is. Not a single bad word is said about Virginia Tech on that tour. UVA's bleeding students to Tech. Virginia Tech has the 13th best undergrad engineering program in America. UVA is ranked 35 per U.S. News. Just some things to consider. Fantastic comment. Here's a conversation for your NFC and AFC cocktail parties this weekend. NFC and AFC cocktail parties, okay? For Virginia basketball this weekend, okay? Should historical guides for prospective students, should historical tours for prospective students and their parents discuss the checkered history of the university through a lens that is interpreted by the guide, him or herself, or should the historical tour of the university you're considering be a tour that's centered around the upside and positive of attending said university? Great question.
Yeah. I think the city has I think the university has handled this extremely poorly. On the one hand, the guide service is not run by the university, so they lack a certain amount of authority over what can and can't be said.
They own the buildings, the dirt.
If they want a what would you say, like a streamlined one single story, toe the company line narrative, commentary, then they need to do more to either work with the university guide service or abolish it and create their own. They haven't really done either. The university, if they wanted to win this battle,
if they really wanted to win the battle, but they can't afford to do it because they don't have the equity from a public relations standpoint to go toe-to-toe with 24 students and say, you don't have the right of freedom of speech here to interpret historical perspective and commentary and offer it to prospective students and their parents because you're trespassing on our land. We're going to squash you like the mosquitoes that you are.
You think
They cannot say that because of the May protests and how it imploded on them, the UVA health on how it imploded on them, the murder of those 3 football players and how it imploded on them, and basically the vulnerable nature of the Virginia brand right now.
I don't think any of that matters. I think it's just a bad look on them if they pull something like that.
Of course it's a bad look. They're basically telling 18, 19, 20-year-olds you can't do this. But if they wanted to, they could.
Sure.
And if they wanted to, they could offer a competing service, and they can market the hell out of it, and they can do it at the exact same time of these other tours, and they can say, you know what? Not only are we going to give a historical tour at the exact same time as the other tours, but with our tours, you're going to get a free UVA t-shirt if you take it. You're going to get a free UVA hat. You're going to get a goodie bag. You're going to get a party favor bag. They're not giving you that. Mm-hmm. And who do you think is going to win?
Definitely a lot of ways that UVA could have handled this differently.
God, it's such a good story. It just gives me goosebumps. I love how good that story is.
It is an interesting story.
Content creator's dream. Apathy, I wouldn't say that, though.
I would. Because going back to your analogy,
agree to disagree.
It's not like the woman is actively trying to stay out of, not answering the phone, staying out of this guy's way. It's more like they live together, and she's just not responding to anything that he says.
Who are you referring to?
Your boyfriend and girlfriend analogy.
Who are you referring to in the UVA story?
The school and the students?
I'm lost.
Okay. Do you remember your analogy?
Yes.
Of the boyfriend and the girlfriend, and she ghosts him, and he's trying to contact her. Except the way I see it is that they live in the same house. So she's not actively not answering the phone. She's just sitting there, not responding to this person, sitting on the couch with her. That's apathy.
Suspension, okay, we'll go to the next topic. Suspending someone's not apathy. Holding someone accountable to an agreement and a contract by saying you can't do this as the guides, you're going to have to do this as individuals, is not apathy. They suspended them.
I know that.
They literally said you can't do this.
And then in the intervening months, they
made
done
them take
nothing.
In the intervening months, they made them take obscene training and then never let them come back and do what they wanted after taking the training. Extended the suspension, despite dangling the carrot that you will be unsuspended once the training is done. The guide service told us that. They told us it would be a one semester suspension. And then they said, surprisingly, they continued the suspension into another semester. Mm-hmm. That's not apathy. That's effing with them. That's like in my analogy of the girl breaking up with the guy and then ghosting him. That's reminiscent of the girl breaking up with the guy and then bringing her new boyfriend around the guy to kick him in the gonads some more.
I'm not sure how you see that, but okay. They haven't started their own new guide service, have they?
UVA?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
That would be bringing the boyfriend around to kick the
That's
ex.
the next step that's going to happen.
Okay.
That is the next step.
No doubt.
Should we do a prop bet on that?
No, because I'm sure they'll probably do it.
Okay.
They certainly don't want to.
That's the next step.
They certainly are making their intentions to not deal with this clear by not responding to the university guides.
Right. Bingo. Next topic. This one's close to home to Judah Wickower here. You're on the who, what, when, where, why on this one.
We recently had an Albemarle County School Board election in which one candidate was labeled for his political beliefs and then went on to lose by a not very large margin.
Pretty narrow margin.
Yeah.
Pretty narrow margin.
I believe he got...
There's about a 400 to 500 vote gap between Chuck Pace, who won, and your boy Dylan Beck from your church, who lost.
Jim Dylan Beck. And he ended with, I believe it was just under 4,100 votes.
Which is a boatload of votes.
Yeah.
Finished in second place.
Especially when the margin was what? What would you say, like
10%?
10%?
Yeah. 12% margin here.
Then, sadly, Chuck Pace, the elected school board member, passed away in December.
Rio District, just after he won the office in November.
And the school district started asking for
The school board solicited applications for someone that they could appoint to the Rio District seat.
Jim Dillenbeck was one of 7 people who
applied,
gave applications, and was not chosen.
The school board chooses instead one of 7 applicants who embodies the school board's ideology and mindset. Instead of picking the candidate that narrowly lost the election, that was conservative in ideology, they chose a candidate, an applicant, who had no election experience, no running experience, no campaign experience, had garnered 0 votes to that time, did not represent the Rio District in any kind of campaigning standpoint, and they put her as the hand-picked choice on the school board.
And here's another interesting point. I don't know that I necessarily agree with any of the arguments surrounding this, but if you remember, there was an issue with Meg Bryce not having her kids in a public school. That was stated to be one of the issues that people had with her as a candidate.
Okay, you're going to have to make a segue here.
And the segue is that a majority of the interviewees had children or grandchildren who attended ACPS schools, with the exceptions of Sarah Jenkins and the woman who was chosen, Leslie Pryor. Take that as you will.
Well, make the point. Hit him over the head with the point.
I made the point that if you're against somebody running, then you can use their children or lack of children in that public school system against them. But if you're for somebody running, then you can choose to ignore that exact same status.
The issue with Bryce, in part, was the fact that her children attended private school and not Albemarle County Public School.
Yeah.
And haters who were chugging the haterade said, hey, your kids are in private school, not public school. You can't be on the school board. Now, those same haters, including Meg Bryce's opponent in the at-large race of the Albemarle County School Board, Allison Spillman, said, I'm going to appoint this person who, Judah, say it loud for everyone in the back?
Has no children in the school system. It should also be noted that she doesn't have children. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to pull the wool over someone's eyes. But
does she have kids in the school system?
No, she does not.
Can you make a segue to Glenn Youngkin and Meg Bryce in the Virginia Board of Education?
They are...
So who, what, when, where, why first, so then make your point.
Meg Bryce, having previously ran for the school board, was appointed by Youngkin to the
Virginia Board of Education.
Yeah, Virginia Board of Education. People don't like the fact that, well, I believe the argument is that she lost in the school board election, and so should not be fit to be given a place on the Virginia Board of Education. And so they are now blocking her appointment. But they're perfectly happy to appoint someone who didn't even run for a seat, because it's not the person that that they have a problem with, the politics, whether or not those politics are.
The first point works against you, saying you can't appoint Meg Bryce to the Virginia the Board of Education because she lost the race. Yeah. That works against your Dillebeck point, because he lost the race, so he shouldn't be appointed to the board.
But it's okay to appoint someone that didn't even.
That's the point you should be making.
That didn't even run.
There's the point you should be making.
Okay.
That's the point right there. Guys, this reeks of political nepotism, cronyism. This reeks of backroom dealing. This reeks of the antithesis of democracy. You had a candidate that narrowly lost the race.
Yeah.
Narrowly lost the race. That campaigned and introduced himself to voters in the Rio district and got more than 4,000 votes. Mm-hmm. And he was kicked to the curb like a recycling bin stuffed with skim milk, empty milk jugs. And he was substituted or replaced, or someone else was chosen in his stead that had no kids in the school system, had not campaigned, not run for re-election, but did meet the politics of the board.
Yeah.
And it's the same people that said Bryce shouldn't be on the board because she has no kids in the schools, who are then, months later, picking someone who has no kids in the schools. Good Lord, Albemarle County. Good Lord, Albemarle County.
And once again,
what have you become?
Once again, we're also looking at an echo chamber of people who don't want to hear a different perspective on how things should be.
This turn of events is the same turn of events that's happening on social media, where activists and liberal-minded individuals are sprinting to blue sky and jettisoning Twitter and Facebook because of Musk and Zuckerberg's positioning, public and actual, with Donald Trump in second term.
And other reasons.
No fact-checking on Twitter anymore is another reason. No fact-checking on Facebook is another reason. Zuckerberg and Musk are CEOs of publicly traded companies. They should, as CEOs of publicly traded companies, do what's best for their stockholders by forming a relationship with the most powerful man in the world. That's what's best for stockholders and their companies. True. And companies. Oh, unbelievable. Next topic on the Friday edition of the I Love CVille show. What is it, Judah Wickhauer?
What's the best use for Jax's?
What is the best use for Jax's Bar and Grill in Crozet? Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. Jax's Bar and Grill closes in what, December? Albert Gray's Warrior AG, who I have tremendous respect for. Is Warrior AG watching the program? I hope he is. Tremendous respect for this man. He knows what's up. Albert Graves, in a thread on my Facebook page, said the following. The Mexican restaurant did awesome in that Jax's Bar and Grill space across from the Harris Teeter in Crozet. They eventually moved out after they outgrew it and moved to their new location at the intersection of 250 and 240. That's the old Ivy Roadhouse. He says, I believe the biggest problem at Jax's Bar and Grill is the people who have tried to run a business at that location either did not have the capital or know how to sustain a restaurant business. Jax's, for example, would close on Friday or Saturday night. And in the restaurant business, that is two of your most important evenings. When customers depend on you to be open those nights, when they go there and you're closed, they will not come back. Yeah. It's just like in sports. One of the key stats, one of the most underrated statistics in sports is the statistic of availability. Are you available to play the game and not on the injured list? Jax's did not have the availability because they were closed during normal hours too much. And that lack of availability hurt their business. He also highlights that the owner of Jax's very publicly had beef with his employees, would get intense with his employees, berate his employees in front of customers. And then Albert Graves also says that the Crozet market is far too saturated with pizza places. He highlights Sal's. He highlights Crozet Pizza and Domino's, who all have very loyal following. He says a pizza place would not work in that location. And Albert Graves says that would make a fantastic home, Jax's Bar and Grill, for home-cooked food, burgers and steaks and daily specials, meatloaf, fried chicken, homemade soups, desserts, and it has to have an active bar as well.
You're making me hungry.
Albert Graves, you made the program better right there. I'm going to ask you, the viewer and listener, what is the best use for Jax's Bar and Grill in Crozet? I will offer this perspective as someone who offers a lot of counsel and guidance to folks that are in F&B, whether through business brokerage, real estate, branding, advertising, expanding their market share. If you choose to open an F&B business in 2025, my friends, look at successful models that are working. Derek Bond is doing a bang-up job at Moe's, where you have one person at the front of the house that is running the register, working the bar. And then you have the employees order at a register or at a window and pick up their own food and bring it to their own table, bus and clean their own tables. In 2025, if your game plan is to open a fine dining or a sit-down restaurant, you will struggle. The labor is entirely too expensive, and there's too much competition in that type of food service business. You want to be fast, casual, quick serve. South Street did a damn good job of pivoting its model. We went to South Street on Saturday prior to the Buffalo Bills-Ravens game, where the Bills backer, the Buffalo Bills Mafia, the Bills backers were there. There must have been 200 people there. Every seat was taken. Every table was taken. It was standing room only. My wife and I, our 6-year-old and our 2-year-old were with us. It was loud. It was noisy. But the food came out quickly. The drinks were on our tables. Why? Because we picked up the damn drinks from the bar. We ordered at the bar. We did a lot of the work. We checked out at the bar. Everything was done through the consumer doing the work. That's the model for 2024, 2025. And another thing, I'm going to throw this out there. Eventually, we're going to come to the conclusion as heads of food and beverage businesses that these third-party websites, these Grubhubs, these DoorDashes, these Uber Eats are not great for our business. The food comes cold. Your margin is nothing. Your customer is unhappy. Some drivers are digging through your food and eating it before it gets to your door. Eventually, we're going to realize this is not good for our food and beverage business and will cause our demise. Some have already realized that. The winners will realize strategies like this or pay us or offer the counsel to get them there.
Sadly, some of them don't have a choice.
The losers will go the way of...
The cuckoo bird?
What's that?
The cuckoo bird?
Jax's Bar and Grill? Jax's Bar and Grill? Table service? No availability?
Mm-hmm.
What was the point you're going to make? Sadly?
What was the point I was going to make? Sadly, go-karts.
What?
Nothing, it's a joke. I forget what I was going to say.
What is the best use for Jax's Bar and Grill? You have thousands of cars driving by there every day. You have the density of Old Trail, and you're right across from a Harris Teeter in a deep-pocketed market we call Crozet. Very curious what the best use of Jax's Bar and Grill is. Is it a brew pub? A local beer brand opening a tasting room and brew pub there? Is it a local vineyard or winery opening a vineyard winery tasting room there? You're not making it there. You're just serving your booze. Whatever it is, it better be quick serve and fast casual. It's not sandwiches. That's right next door. It's not pizza. Albert Graves is showing that. Mexican, we got that. What is the best use? We got barbecue in Crozet?
I do not know.
That, my friends, is an important question to follow. Was the last topic? Oh, yeah. Your favorite appetizers in the world? Have we gotten to that? What are your favorite appetizers, guys? Let's create a water cooler of conversation for appetizers for you to try. Lord and Ivy says the calamari and vivace is off the chain. I concur. I've had the calamari at vivace. It is delicious, the calamari and vivace.
I love the free chips and salsa you get at the Guadalajara's, and they've upped their salsa game.
It's got a little kick to it.
It does have some kick to it.
Judah's favorite appetizer, the Guadalajara free chips and salsa.
It's a good one.
I love the cheese curds at South Street Brewery. Have you had them?
Nope.
So good. Taylor Smack, those are smack your mama good, the cheese curds. The wonton nachos at South Street. So good. The wonton nachos. Lauren and Ivy says, how about a smoked barbecue place at that Jax's Bar and Grill? Bill McChesney, the Greek stuffed grape leaves. The dolma dakia, the dolma days at Tip Top with tzatziki sauce. Ooh, Bill McChesney, that sounds delicious. Maria Marshall Barnes says, I love those chips and spicy salsa at Guadalajara. Yeah. Janice Boyce Trevelyan says, smoked is great barbecue in Crozet. JBT, thank you. Is that the only barbecue spot that's in Crozet smoked? Genuine question for you. Maria Marshall Barnes says, how about Chinese in Crozet at Jax's Bar and Grill?
You know what we could use? We could use a good teppanyaki place.
Teppanyaki? Is that like where they cook it at your table and they flip the shrimp in your mouth and you got to catch it in your...
Yeah.
They have one north of town in Forest Lake Shopping Center. My family went there for my wife's birthday. They flipped the shrimp in the air. I missed it. It hit my big nose and it fell to the ground. My wife caught it. Our 6-year-old caught it. There goes Dave Warwick. Dave Warwick, oh, he blows us a kiss right there. We love Dave Warwick. Brewmaster of 3 Notch. Did you catch him on the studio camera, the Market Street cam? Dang.
Teppanyaki used to be my go-to for birthday meals.
Teppanyaki good. That's a great suggestion.
Until the Flaming Wok went the way of the dodo.
That's, I mean, does today's restaurant consumer have 2 hours to spend eating at a restaurant? Did COVID, I sincerely going to ask you this question. Did the pandemic and COVID and that time where the government put us on lockdown, stripped us of our freedoms and said, you have to stay at home, you have to not eat and drink out, we're going to prioritize big box brands and publicly traded companies over locally owned and operated businesses. We're going to keep the Walmarts and the Targets open, but we're going to tell all the mom and pops and the locally owned businesses to close. And we're going to tell all the consumer to stay at home, where when they're at home, they're going to be able to order online through all these publicly traded companies that are vertically integrated and well set up for this lockdown, for this COVID. And we're going to screw the small mom and pops. And we're going to do it for a period of time where human behavior is going to change. And the consumer coming out of the pandemic is going to now be trained to order their food online, have it delivered to them, and eat them in the tighty-whities in their bathrobe while watching streaming Netflix on the couch, as opposed to going to the mom and pop and supporting them in person. That's part of the collateral damage of COVID.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is while they may say that the economy is great, I think there's a growing portion of people who are trying not to spend money.
I think there's a growing portion of the economy that is trying not to spend money. But reading the tea leaves, unfortunately, horribly unfortunately, that portion of the consumer base is being eradicated from Charlottesville and Albemarle County.
You're saying what part of the you're saying the consumer base that's trying not to go out and spend?
Yep. Is being eradicated by Charlottesville and Albemarle County.
I mean,
through the cost of living that's continuing to rise. And I'm going to straight up tell you, I've waved this flag louder and more consistently than anyone in this community. We still haven't seen the true impacts of data science in the biotech school with the population increase of 6,000 to 8,000 people waiting to happen.
right.
Where are 6,000 to 8,000 additional people going to live in Charlottesville and Albemarle County? All of them with deep six-figure salaries.
In currently occupied houses.
Yeah, they're going to drive up the cost of real estate and the cost of living even more. That's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, folks, mark it down. Wish I had one of those Keith Smith slides that I could put on screen where we could talk about total units sold. That's a topic for another day. I got a 1:45 phone call.
I probably got one of those slides.
I got a 1:45 phone call with a business owner who is intrigued with my clients potentially selling, buying his or her business. And I'll close with this. One of the ways we're able to do all these deals, folks, with real estate and with business brokerage, with commercial, is because our word is our bond. When folks reach out to us through text message or email or phone call or FaceTime or in person, it's the confessional booth. The conversation goes nowhere. You don't do these deals if you don't have sealed lips, because loose lips sink ships. That's how we do these deals, is because the folks trust us. Friday edition of the talk show. We just went an hour and 15 minutes without taking a break to go to the bathroom or for commercial or for anything. Judah Wickhauer was a maestro this week with the talk show. Sincerely, Judah, hell of a week for you.
Thank you.
For Judah Wickhauer, my name is Jerry Miller. So long, everybody.